Hi, I'm here with Vinatha Reddy. She is the founding member and current chairperson of the Grameen Koota microfinance institution. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Why did you start the organization? What is the need that Grameen Koota is answering, is facilitating?
Well, I belong to this village of Avalhalli, and while growing up, I think ours was the only big house in this area, and all the other houses were small houses belonging to poor and low income families. And most of these households were people who were working in the quarries around Avalhalli, or they were agricultural laborers or daily wage earners. I mean, some of the cases were real stark poverty, like the memory of that was always at the back of my mind. So when I read the book Give Us Credit by Alex Counts, which told the story of Professor Muhammad Yunus and how he had helped the poor in their country and in their country of Bangladesh through microcredit, how he helped poor people overcome their situation and work themselves out of poverty through access to credit. I thought I had found a solution and that I needed to do this work in Avalhalli, and that is how I contacted Grameen Bank and was able to replicate similar work here too. That's how Grameen Koota started.
Do you, so you have this particular structure in mind and you've been influenced by Professor Yunus quite significantly. Could you tell us sort of a process of how this loan works? Do people contact you? Are you contacting them?
We work through branch networks. So the branch has its own staff who go out in a radius of 25 kilometers around the branch area, campaigning about our program, canvassing about our program. You know, we conduct projection meetings at various places, and we talk about our program and the services we offer, for whom it is offered, and all this. And people who are interested would then come and form themselves into groups, and our staff will go and train the groups for about 7 days on all the loan processes, the do's and the don'ts, the interest rates and the credit discipline that they'll have to maintain, and all, what are the types of loans they can access. This is the training that is given to the groups, and once the groups are formed, the work starts off, and the groups will come up with loan applications which are then assessed, and loan appraisals are done, and the loan gets sanctioned to the group members.
What is the general reaction of people when they are approached by your field workers on the ground?
Well, nowadays everybody is aware of microfinance, you know, because it's quite widespread now. The sector has grown. But in the initial days, because Grameen Koota started in 1999, initial stages there was a little bit of fear in these projection meetings. When we used to have to talk about our program, people wouldn't actually believe that it could be true that they could access loans without collateral, without security and all. And sometimes rumors would be spread about us by vested interests, you know, like local money lenders or people in the villages and slums who were, they would say that, you know, these are people who've come, they're going to take you away to Bombay, or they would spread rumors saying they're going to convert you all. So they would put fear into the women. But in spite of that, once one or two groups were formed, then they saw that we were walking the talk, then the whole movement started spreading, and people from surrounding villages would come, send word to the office saying that come to our village, we also need this service, please come to our area. As of now, we have more than 400,000 women in our program, and many a times we are asked the question like, do you think the loans are helping? We do have proxy indicators, like the women repeatedly take loans. Once they close a loan, they, you know, apply for another loan. And the attendance at the weekly meetings, the groups meet every week to do all these transactions, this banking transaction. The attendance at these weekly meetings is very high. And the other thing is that they are creating assets. So I think these are all the proxy indicators which say that the loans are helping the women.
Could you tell us a story or two of some of the women who have taken loans from you and some of the enterprises they may have started or some of the work that they might be doing?
I can tell you about one lady called Fatima. She actually belonged to Avalali, and she was extremely poor. On top of that, one fine day, her daughter came home for delivery, and for her fourth delivery, and she delivered the baby and she passed away. And the husband, her son-in-law, just ran away after that because he thought it was too much of a burden to look after 4 children. So in this stage, Fatima joined the group, and she borrowed for doing second-hand clothes business, and also she borrowed again for doing I think selling of vegetables or whatever. So after many cycles, I think one day when I met her, she said now she could afford to feed the children better, and she said that for the youngest child she is able to afford giving her milk. And I thought that was a great empowering, and what had happened. Then there was another lady called Gauri. This, of course, this lady is from one of our earliest members. Initially, when we started Grameen Koota, our loan size was just 4,000. So the first time we would give our members 4,000 rupees. So though she was eligible to borrow 4,000, she had applied for a loan of just 1,000 rupees. So that was very intriguing. I was wondering, why did this lady, even though she is eligible for 4,000, why has she taken only 1,000? So when I had visited that village, I went to check on her, and she was living in almost like in a cow shed, you know. And then I realized why she had applied for just 1,000, because she was so poor. There was no way she could have repaid a 4,000 rupee loan. She was living in a cow shed practically, with her husband and one small child. And a couple of years later, at one of our own Grameen Koota workshop, I saw somebody smiling and walking towards me, and it was the same lady, Gaurama. And she came and told me that now she had about 7 sheep. She had borrowed that 1,000 rupees to buy a lamb and to look after it and all that, and that had multiplied into 7 sheep, and she was so proud of that. So I think you can see the impact of how access to credit helps people to improve their lives and the quality of their life.
Supporters of microfinance show microfinancing as a process being an empowering tool for women, giving them resources they need to start enterprises, to support their home, to support their family, but also point to the fact that women tend to repay loans a lot more efficiently than men do. Are these your observations as well?
I think from day one these have been the observations. Even in Bangladesh, when Grameen Bank first started, there's empirical data. When it first started, they used to give loans to men also, and they found that whenever men took these loans and they were able to make surpluses on the loans, or have higher incomes, it wasn't necessarily being spent for the family. Whereas when women took the loans and they used it well, and the surplus income that they made from these loans was used for the welfare of the whole family, that is the whole household, especially the children. So from this empirical data, we have sort of adapted the same model, and we also have the program only for women.
The traditional financial sector like banks and things like that, why is there a perceived barrier of entry for women to use the traditional financing sector?
Yeah, I think even though banks have been nationalized maybe 45 years ago, and that is in 1969, and they were mandated to reach out to low income households, and maybe even women from low income households, they haven't been able to do it. And I think one of the reasons is because one of the few reasons is, first and foremost, these women would feel intimidated walking into a bank branch, because it is also fancy, and they're most of them are illiterate, and they wouldn't know how to transact over there. And another thing would be that the distance from their houses, it would be very far from their house. Then the other thing would be that all the documentation that is there is, it is not understandable by them. It may not be in the language that they know, or very fact that they are illiterate, they won't be able to understand all those forms and formalities. So that is why the banking hasn't reached down to the grassroots.
And to a large extent, Grameen Koota has been able to surpass those and make it more accessible for women
Yeah,
in
because
rural areas.
we go to the doorstep. We go to the doorstep of the women and we do all the transactions around their house. And we do it in a way which is more simplistic. We have adapted to the local language and the way we make everything very simple and friendly for them, you know. So they are able to access it much better.
Critics of microfinance point to higher interest rates, point to profits being made by micro credit organizations, and claim that these are merely business organizations, profit driven organizations working under the guise of a social impact institution. Could you respond to that?
I would say that microfinance started off as in the NGO sector, but in the NGO sector it couldn't achieve scale. It was more like R&D. They did all the research in the NGO sector. So once you crack a problem, I think it should be mainstream so that more and more people can be impacted by it. So that is why the sector moved on to the for-profit entities. They all many microfinance institutions became for-profit entities or NBFC MFIs. And it is true that there was a time, there was a period before 2010 when there was unprecedented growth in the sector and all sorts of practices came into it. But now the regulator has stepped in, the RBI has stepped in, and it has given a lot of guidelines which all microfinance institutions need to follow. And now there's a credit bureau also. No women can borrow more than 2 loans from microfinance institution, and it is stipulated about the interest also, what can be charged and all. So with these regulations coming in, I think it's safer now for the whole sector, not only for the sector, but there is more responsible lending happening with microfinance. And unless microfinance is promoted, I think financial inclusion is going to be very difficult to achieve. And unless there is financial inclusion, we have a whole world of unbanked people who cannot join the mainstream economy at all.
When you look back at your time that you spent here with doing this work, from sort of where you started, are you happy, ma'am? Are you satisfied with the work that's being done?
I think reaching out to 4,000 clients, reaching out to their families and helping them to overcome their situation is something very nice that Grameen Koota has been able to do. Your day starts at 6 when you have to go into the field to attend to all the group meetings, and then sometimes the group trainings happen late in the evening. So your the whole day is spent on working with the women's groups and doing the collections and coming back to office and uploading all the details. So it's a lot of hard work, I think.
Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. I really appreciate it.